Well, let's get an independent view on the spending decisions that Rachel Reeves has set out today. Gemma Tetlow is the chief economist at the Institute for Government. Welcome.
Thank you.
We spoke to an investment banker in the last hour who said, not only do we welcome capital investment, we positively encourage it. Which begs the question, why is the Chancellor so loath to borrow, to put money into infrastructure, into all the things we need around the country?
So Rachel Reeves has announced quite significant increases in capital spending, certainly compared to the plans that she inherited from the previous government, particularly in the autumn, and then she announced a bit extra today. She is clearly hoping partly not just to increase public sector investment, but to also encourage the private sector to invest alongside that as a way of limiting the increase in public debt. I mean, there is a trade-off. Obviously, good infrastructure projects will deliver returns to the economy, can drive stronger growth in the longer term, but that does come at the cost, if you fund it publicly, of higher borrowing in the near term. And the government is already doing quite a lot of borrowing issuance in the next few years, both to refinance existing debt and for the extra borrowing that it needs to do. So she's striking a balance between putting public money behind that in the hope that it delivers stronger long-term growth, but not doing too much of that for fear of driving up debt too high.
How much of a headache is the refinancing of that maturing debt?
So I'm not a markets expert, but I think they're needing to issue about £300 billion a year for each of the next couple of years. That's pretty high by historical standards. So they do need the markets to be confident in their plans and to be willing to buy UK government debt.
Because that confidence, just to explain to people, really does set the margin of where the interest rates are.
It does, and for various reasons, including the increase in the level of debt in recent years, the UK's public finances are now much more sensitive to those market interest rates, and moves in those can significantly affect the government's total spending numbers.
The markets appear to be quite sanguine about what they've heard today, probably because a lot of this has already been priced in. But that's not the end of it, because there are some pretty stiff headwinds ahead of us. The cuts to departmental spending in June, which we've talked about, also that tariff decision, which she has no control over, which will come in the next 2 weeks.
Yes, on the fiscal plans that she already has, I think June 11th, when we get the spending review outturns, will be a really key point at which to be able to judge, are they really able to deliver their ambitions on public services within those quite tight spending envelopes. But yes, the OBR outlined in their forecast today that around their central forecast are some quite significant risks, including those tariff decisions and the possibility that interest rates could go up further and push things off course.
When you talk about the tight spending envelope, a lot of people who've been here today have questioned whether it's the right decision to pin all your decisions to this fiscal headroom. And it is very slender, around 10 billion. It's a rounding error. If there are events like tariffs or if borrowing rates go up, it will be wiped out in an instant. So does the Institute for Government think it's the right way to make decisions?
So it's right to have some sort of fiscal rule to constrain government's decisions, but having only a very small margin of headroom against that fiscal target that she left herself in October meant that with a pretty average forecast revision that we got from the OBR today, she was knocked off course and felt that she had to announce further measures.
To the tune of $4 billion. I mean,
yeah,
it was a black hole.
It wasn't even that, actually, because if the OBR gave them credit in this forecast for the positive boost from their planning reforms. So actually, if she'd done nothing in new announcements, they would have been off, of course, by less than £1 billion. And yet she felt like she needed, presumably to reassure markets, to do something to claw back that 10 billion. But it really is a rounding error in the public finances.
I saw, as we were speaking to Gareth Davies, you smile when we pinned him on the triple lock, because there are some decisions that are going to have to be made as both parties revisit policy on what they spend and what they save. What would getting rid of the triple lock deliver to the Labour government?
So the exact numbers I don't know. The issue with the triple lock is that over particularly longer periods of time, because it means that the level of the state pension ratchets up relative to both prices and earnings in the economy, it can be quite costly as you go through periods of boom and bust in prices and earnings. And it's not a terribly efficient way of targeting money towards the lowest income pensioners, if that's what you want to do, it's a pretty costly way of doing that.
But if you look at what the Governor of the Bank of England had to say just a couple of days ago, he said the two biggest threats to the British economy right now, the lack of growth, naturally, but also the fact we're a fast ageing population.
Yes, I mean, a huge challenge facing this government and any UK government is that with an ageing population, we've got growing pressures on health and social care spending and pension spending. And the challenge is how do you pay for that and balancing that against low growth.
Lots to consider, isn't there? Gemma Tetlow, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts.